Now, before you pack your bags, book that flight, and say goodbye to everyone back home, there are a few things I want you to think about because moving abroad can completely change your life, but not always in the way you expect. A lot of people actually think that the hardest part is applying for the visa, getting on the plane, and finding their first job. But honestly, that is just the beginning. The real challenge begins when you arrive. How do you survive the first few months? How much money should you have? Should you immediately start sending money back home? What about your wife? What about your children? What about your parents who are depending on you? And how do you make sure that you don't arrive in a new country and immediately find yourself in financial trouble? I have lived abroad. I have experienced what it means to start over in a different country altogether. And I have learned that sometimes the decisions we make in the first 3 to 6 months determines whether our experience abroad will be successful or just a constant struggle. So in this video, I am going to share 5 important things I believe you should know and do before and during your early stages abroad. Trust me, number one is something I wish people can take more seriously. Number one, make sure you secure your family before you leave. Secure your family before you leave is one of the most important topics, which, most of us or some of us, excluding the people who don't have a family yet, but one way or the other, there might be somebody depending on you. The first thing I would tell anyone who is moving abroad is not to leave, don't leave your responsibilities behind and hope that somehow it might work out. No, you don't do it this way. If you have a wife, children, parents, or somebody who depends on you financially, make sure that before you leave, they have enough money to survive at least for 2 to 3 months whilst you establish yourself. Remember, when you arrive in a new country, you might not have a job immediately. There might be unexpected expenses, and your first salary might take weeks or even months to arrive. So before you leave, ask yourself, if you don't send money home to your family for the next 2 to 3 months, are they going to be okay? If the answer is no, then you may need to prepare a little more before you move. And don't move abroad trying to solve one financial problem whilst creating another elsewhere. Number two, don't rush to send money home. This is one of the thing, I mean, is one of the important things I think people don't really talk about. Why? Because we travel abroad, we move abroad mostly, of course, to seek greener pastures outside. I mean, to take our family out of poverty, to be able to be a provider, to be able to help family, or to, build a better life for yourself and for your family and for everyone around you. Um, and when you move abroad, when you get your first salary, there might be a lot of pressure for you to immediately send money back home. Of course, if your family needs help, you may want to help. But one thing you need to understand is that you are still trying to build your own foundation because without a better foundation abroad, trust me, it's going to be really difficult for your life to take off. Um, and your first few salaries may go towards your rent, your utilities, your groceries, transportation, unexpected, document expenses for documentation and all that. And most importantly, you need to start building your emergency savings or funds right away. So don't feel guilty if you are not immediately able to send the amount of money you imagined you will be sending. First, you need to become stable before you can become, of course, before you can become a provider. Because if you become financially unstable, eventually you won't be able to help anyone, even yourself. Okay, so this is the second most important point. Number three, build an emergency fund or build an emergency savings. The third thing is quite simple. You need to start saving. You need to save before you start living comfortably. One of the biggest mistakes a lot of people make when they move abroad and they see their first salary, they begin to think a lot because they see They suddenly see the gap in the difference in the amount and the weight of money they get abroad and what they used to get back home. So then they begin to think, how can they spend the money? What can they buy? Or how much to send back home? If you start thinking like that, my brother, my sister, I think you need to pump your brakes. But instead, look at your salary and ask yourself, what happens if I lose my salary or I lose my job, I lose my income tomorrow? Will I be able to survive? Try to build an emergency fund that can cover your essentials for several months. That is one of the most important thing when you get to abroad in the early stages. Because things happen. You might lose your job, your rent can increase, you might have an unexpected expenses that you need to do, or you might unexpectedly need to go home, to be able to, because it happens to some of us, it happens to some people. You get abroad for the first time and you want to work, but then to be able to work, you need to change some documents, you need to do something unexpectedly, you need to spend some money, or maybe you need to go out of the country and come back. All these emergency funds are something, when you have, it puts your mind at ease. Okay, number four, don't try to look rich. The fourth point is something I want people to understand. Moving abroad does not automatically mean you are successful. No, it doesn't mean that. You don't need to arrive and immediately buy the most expensive car, live in the biggest apartment, buy the newest phone, or let's say eat in the fanciest restaurant to let people or show people back home that you are doing well. You're already successful in your first few months. Sometimes the smartest thing to do is to live as simple as you can in your first year. Nobody needs to know how much you are earning. Nobody needs to know how much money you have. And you don't need to prove anything to anybody. You build quietly, save quietly, and learn quietly. Because what matters isn't how successful you look during your first 6 months, but at the end of the day, what matters is what you have actually built after 2 years, 3 years, or even 5 years. And number five, which is my last point, learn how the country works. I always advise people, like in Chinese, we say, 入乡随俗. It means when you go to Rome, you do what the Romans do. Basically, when you go to a new country, if their official language is not what you speak back in your country, you need to learn their language. But yes, the language has its benefits, but then not only the language, you need to understand how the system works over there. Because moving to a new country, there's a huge possibility that the system that runs there is not the same system that runs in your own country. So the best thing you can do after learning the language or whilst learning the language is being able to understand how the system actually works around you. Because if you are able to do that, then moving forward, doing things will be quite easy for you. Like, for example, things like how do you pay your taxes? How does their healthcare system work? How does the bank works? How do you rent an apartment? What are some of your rights as an employee working in a company? Sometimes, what are some of the necessary documents you need to do different processes as you are a new person there? Where do you need to go when you have a problem? And most importantly, you need to learn where to get reliable information from. And don't depend entirely on what somebody said in in a WhatsApp group chat, or what experiences they had 5 years ago. That information might be good for you, but not good for you in that present moment, because maybe the laws 5 years ago has changed, because your situation might be completely different, right? Also, learn how to find official information and try to understand the rules of the system by yourself. Because when you understand the system, when you understand how things work, you become much harder to take advantage of. Trust me, I have seen a lot of situations where people don't understand rules, don't understand how to do stuff, and they've been taken advantage of. And trust me, you will be taken advantage of irrespective of what. So, learning the system, learning the language, being able to understand how the system works in there will be very beneficial to you. And finally, so those are the five things I think you should seriously think about before leaving. And I am not saying these things because I want to discourage anyone from leaving. Actually, it's the opposite. I want people to move abroad better prepared because preparation can make the difference between simply surviving in another country and actually building a life. The plane ticket gets you to the country. Preparation is what helps you to stay there. So if you're planning to move abroad, I hope you take one thing from this video. Don't just prepare to leave your country. Prepare to build a new life in a new country. Don't rush to prove to everyone back in your country that you made it. And don't spend your first salary trying to look successful. And don't put yourself under so much financial pressure that you cannot even breathe. Give yourself time to establish yourself. Secure the people who depend on you and understand your expenses. Build an emergency fund and learn how things work in your new country. And most importantly, give yourself permission to start small. Because moving abroad is not a competition. You don't have to have the biggest apartment, the newest car, or sending the biggest money home. Sometimes success abroad simply means that after 6 months, you are stable, you are learning, you are saving, you are taking care of your responsibilities, and you are slowly building something better for yourself and your family. And remember, the goal isn't just to move abroad. The goal is actually to build a life that can sustain you once you're there. If you're planning to move abroad, let me know in the comments. What country are you planning to move to? And what are some of your biggest concerns of moving to a new country? And if you found this video useful, don't forget to like and subscribe and share it with somebody who is preparing to make that journey. I'll see you in the next one.